Hi, Sai here from Music Radar. We're at Superbooth 2018. This is the Spectrasonics stand. Ta-da! This is James. James, you're going to show us, well, it's 2.5.
Yeah.
Just dive in. The big news with 2.5 is
Hardware synth integration. There's many other things, but that's one of the
That's
big
the
ones.
best.
That's kind of why we have all these
yeah,
things here.
that's the big ticket thing going on.
Yeah, it's a big one.
So yeah, dive straight in. What's it all about?
Give it the short and skinny on this one, right? So, biggest issue and problem with software synthesizers, they sound great. They're very powerful. You can't touch them.
Yeah.
So, why hardware exists, why people have hardware is because it's very tactile. It's very easy to make sounds because synths are laid out in a very logical manner, and when you have a synth that you're very familiar with, you can create a sound very quickly because the knob does what it says it does. With controller surfaces and things that you use with software, while that is effective for things like performance, it's not really a sound design tool in a way that I can immediately start grabbing and making sounds without doing a lot of work.
Yeah.
So for the longest time, people have been wanting this sort of a control for software.
Yeah.
And with Omnisphere 2.5, we are the first software company in the world that has done this sort of level of hardware integration.
Yeah.
So with the hardware integration feature of 2.5, when you have one of the supported synths, and we have about 20 that we are supporting right now, and there will be many more.
Yeah.
You select the synth in the hardware pull-down menu. So for this part, I'll use a Moog Voyager, cheap little synth.
Yeah.
Small little thingy.
Everyone's got one.
Yeah, everyone's got one. We figured that's why, we've all got more Voyagers. But this particular synth, even though it's quite a few years old, all of the knobs actually send out MIDI controller numbers. And so with the hardware synth integration, if the synth that you're using sends out MIDI controller numbers or NRPNs, then we can make a profile for it. And we'll be making more.
Yeah.
So I've just selected that, and essentially what happens at this point is now Omnisphere is listening to the synth, and as I start to change anything on the front panel, the knobs that say cut off or whatever the knob or the switch is, it actually will control Omnisphere and do that exact function without you doing anything else. So I can just start diving in, playing around with the filter, get a little less resonance here. Let's start kind of dialing back the oscillators. Give it a little more there. We'll dial in oscillator 2. Nice detune. Now remember, we're hearing Omnisphere. We're not hearing the
just
Moog.
Omnisphere.
It's just Omnisphere.
Yeah.
All right, but you're getting a sort of very Moog-esque character,
okay,
right?
I see what you're saying.
And there's a reason for that, and that's because with the hardware profiles, other than just giving you this great sort of control capability, we're actually giving you the flavor of the synth that you use.
Yeah.
So a Moog has a Moog style sound.
Yeah.
Right. So you've got that 24 dB low pass, ladder filter. On the Moog Voyager, it actually has a unique feature, a unique filter that not many other synths have, which is this filter spacing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can kind of get in there, and Omnisphere's actually already had that. It's had that since quite some time now.
Yeah.
But now we actually have a way to control it. So you'll get that sort of Moogy filter spacing thing.
Okay. Yeah.
If you take a synth, let's say like the System 8, which is a sort of a newer synth, I'm going to go into that, and we're going to select it here. So now when I call up the System 8 and I start playing a patch, right, different sound.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have that, it has that more of a Roland D sort of thing, sawtooth thing. Let's get into sort of the super saw. And we can even use some of the parameters that this particular synth has, like say the variation on the filter, right? So that's going to give us this sort of what the front panel is. So everything from high pass, low pass, band pass, Second one in is going to be our band pass filter. Third variation in gives us a formant.
Okay, yeah.
All right, so lots of more flexibility that happens there too. Things like, let's say, the pitch envelope, to, let's say, using an envelope to control the pitch, right? What I'm going to do is actually create just an initialized patch here. So just clear it out to the very basic thing that happens. And to kind of show you a little of what's going on with the mappings and what we're doing. Because there's a lot more happening here than might meet the eye, right? So, select this. Oh, sorry. Hit the wrong button there. 1 second. right, so if I look at, let's say mod 4, right? So mod 4 on the envelope, normally when you have a default on the mod 4 on the envelope, we'll just go back to sort of like default step envelope. That's normally what in Omnisphere, mod 4 just defaults to the step envelope.
Yeah.
What we are doing with the hardware synth integration is as soon as I touch a knob that's supposed to control a function, let's say like pitch envelope, Omnisphere will start to assign or control many parameters at the same time. So if I touch this amount, let's say the pitch envelope amount, automatically it actually selects an AD envelope.
Okay.
And in the mod matrix, it's now assigned that to pitch course.
Oh, okay.
And it's given me a value that's scaled. So I can do inverted or positive values that are scaled, and then this allows me to control the attack and decay points within the envelope. So there's a lot kind of going on behind the scenes that's going on with these control functions that is much more than just a one-to-one. There's decisions that we've made for this should have this kind of sound because that's how it sounds on the synth. So when you start using different synthesizers to control Omnisphere, you're actually going to get different types of sounds. For example,
we'll go over here.
OB6, right?
Let's have a look at the OB6, yeah.
OB6, you know, Oberheim, very, very famous, very classic sound. There's a reason. You know, these synths sound the way they do because of the components, the types of filters, the types of layout, what it is that they've made the decisions for. Oberheim, classic thing is that it has a state variable filter. Well, in this case, we didn't have a state variable filter in Omnisphere, so we made one.
Okay.
So now we have in 2.5 a state variable filter, and now when you play an over, you go through the different morphing of low pass to notch to high pass, right? So that is a very classic sort of an Oberheim sound, you know, and you expect that when you're playing an Oberheim, and you'll get that because that's the controller you're using. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to have this controller to get the state variable filter. It's there.
It's there.
And it doesn't mean that you need to have these synths to get to the sounds, because with 2.5, we're actually going to be putting a number of new presets. So there's going to be hundreds of new sounds created using these synths.
Okay.
So you're going to get very Moogish,
Yeah.
Oberheimish, boutique type sounds that come with it. The other thing that you'll notice, Omnisphere itself looks a little different.
Right.
So prior to our new version we just announced, Omnisphere has always had 2 layers per patch. Now it has 4.
Okay.
And we've doubled the mod matrix, so now there's like a number of mod matrix points. Increased the amount of LFOs, increased the amount of envelopes, so you're getting a lot more Omnisphere for your buck, which is actually none because it's a free update.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Right, so free upgrade.
That's brilliant.
We also have included a number of new wavetables because some of the synths that we're using, we didn't have some of those waveforms, so we actually added them. So you're getting a lot more than just like, oh, it's just hardware synths. That's a huge feature, but we're actually even giving you more Omnisphere.
Everyone's benefiting.
Everyone gets it. You know, everyone wins.
Yeah.
So there's a lot going on. So, you know, let's just kind of follow it real quick.
Go this way, yeah.
So, for example, that's a really thick, lush synth, right? The OB6 got a very classic sound. Something like an SH01, right? Which is the SH101's brother, if you will, or their new version.
Yeah.
It's a very simple, we know what we're going to get out of that, right? So that 101-y sound, very simple mono bass synth. So if I now select that, I'm going to play the keys here instead of there. Right?
Okay.
I mean, you know, that's kind of what a 101 would sound like, but we're not hearing this. We're hearing Omnisphere, right?
Yeah.
So, now, one thing that we have done with the hardware integration is that some of these synths have certain parameters that maybe don't make sense for us to have that control over. Okay, so for example, like when we were talking about the Moog Voyager, there's a switch on the left-hand side by the wheels that says release on and off. Well, we don't really need that because we have the release controls on the envelopes there.
Yeah.
So what that actually switch becomes is a monophonic polyphonic switch. Cool. So now the sound that I've made, I can switch to poly very quickly.
Yeah.
On something like the SH01A, where it has this tune knob, right?
Yeah.
And on the synth itself, that tune knob affects the tune of the overall synth. Not really something we need to do, right? Because we're dealing with Omnisphere, so we want to change the tuning, we can do that there.
Yeah.
Not really something we found would be a useful thing in a patch. So what we did is we changed the tune knob to be a spread or detune between the oscillators that are in here. So, which is not something you can get out of an SH-101.
Yeah,
so it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
that's an instance where we sort of expanded upon the original.
Improve the original,
And
yeah,
improve
yeah,
it,
yeah.
expand so to give you a different flavor.
Yeah,
if
yeah,
you will,
yeah.
So, you know, all of the synths, again, that you see here all have this control. And it just gives you that thing that we've always wanted from software, which is that tactile, I want to make a sound, I want to change a sound very quickly. The other thing is, since we're dealing with Omnisphere here, right, you know, this particular synth is using very standard analog waveforms. Well, what if I want to actually go into Oscillator 1, and instead of using the analog waveform, just change it to a sample? Right? We're using Omnisphere here, so let's, you know, do human voice, maybe a male and female choir. So, and mix in the waveforms with it. So it allows us to sort of bridge that gap there, for sure. Yeah. And that's Omnisphere 2.5. It's going to be available, finished probably in the summer.
Okay.
But beta testing, which is actually public beta. This is the first time we're doing public beta.
Yeah.
So public beta for Omnisphere is next week. And if you own Omnisphere 2.5 or 2.0, and you're a standard license holder, you can go download, sign up for the beta,
brilliant,
and then go download it next week.
Well, thank you very much.
Excellent.
We can't wait to do that because we have a copy, so we'll be doing that. That'll be very good. Thank you. So be sure to like, subscribe, comment, and share wherever you're seeing this video right now. Check out musicradar.com for the latest news, reviews, and tutorials. And for now, from here, thank you very much. Cheers.
Cheers.